is one of the greatest examples of Romanian entrepreneurship. So Flaviu Simihaian is the founder and CEO of iMedicare, a company that is based in New York but has this engineering and a part of the other teams here in Cluj. And he has started a company that has last year saved patients in the US more than $250 million. So that is really, really impressive, and has thousands of pharmacies as their customers. So really one of the big success stories. But that's not what I find most interesting, because there's like a good bunch of successful entrepreneurs. But that Flaviu is also very committed to contribute back to the local ecosystem. So he has done projects to raise money for schools and equip them with IT, where he's personally put a lot of time in there. He's also started, even before he sold his company, he's also started to invest in the local ecosystem. So when Flaviu and me have done an investment together in a local company here, and when I asked him why he wanted to do it, then his key reason was that he says he wants to contribute back to the ecosystem, so not like with a key reason to get rich. So I always appreciate that your returning speaker here last year has been a great support of the event as well. So I'm really, really happy that we have you here again, and that you're going to share your wisdom with us. And he's going to tell you one of the things that, especially in this ecosystem, I think is extremely crucial, which is about how to sell to your first customers. So thank you very much for coming again, Flaviu, and the stage is all yours. Big applause for Flaviu.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philip. Actually, let's give a round of applause for Philip. He's like working here all day, nonstop, 24/7, and he's the biggest angel investor that I know of in the ecosystem in Romania, and coming all the way from Germany. So let's actually give him a round of applause. Thanks, Philip. Okay, who here has ever been to the US Embassy in Bucharest? Anyone? Yeah, quite a few people. I was there 15 years ago, and here's what I remember. I had to come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and stand for 6 hours in this line outside. And there's this big fence, you know, it's shaped a little bit like a chair. But you can't sit down because there's literally a US soldier with a semi-automatic weapon telling you cannot sit down on the fence. So anyway, I eventually get all the way inside, where I have to convince this American in English that he should give me a visa to the United States. Right? So I tell him, look, I have to sell myself, right? I have to sell myself to this guy right now, me and him. So I tell him, look, I go to school, I'm a good student, you know, I'm a really great guy. Guy's not convinced. You know, so I try harder, right? I tell him, look, I play tennis, you know, I'm a real great guy. Nothing. And then, in a critical moment in my life, he takes this big red stamp and boom, puts it on my passport. And I'm denied entrance in the United States for 10 years. Hello, I'm Flaviu, co-founder of iMedicare, and I'd like to share with you some of the important lessons in sales I learned in the last few years of growing iMedicare from 0 to 4,000 paying customers. Sales is just convincing people to do something, right? Sales is not a bad word. We do it every single day. Every time you convince your friends to go to dinner together, that's sales. It's really hard sales. And being bad at sales is not just bad for business. It's also, as with the US Embassy, it's bad for life. But anyone can be good at sales. You can sell your first customer today. There is nothing stopping you. And I'm going to summarize basically of the painful experiences I've learned, 3 lessons that I've learned. First, let's talk about what you're actually selling, the product. A lot of people I talk to say, I don't have a product, so how am I going to sell without a product, right? You do not need a product in order to sell. This is the first and most important lesson that I have to keep relearning, is that you do not need a product in order to sell. Your ideas are much bigger than your product. When we first started iMedicare, we didn't build an iPad app. We built a PowerPoint presentation that looked like an iPad app. You know, so when you clicked on each of the buttons in a workflow, it goes on to the next screen and the next screen and the next screen. It really looks exactly like an application, like a real product, but it's not. It's just a set of PowerPoint slides. And sometimes customers would say, like, oh, hold on, let me go back to this screen, and oh, hold on, you can't touch that. It's okay. Let me show you something else over in the next step, right? So honestly, you do not need a product in order to sell. Another trap we fall into, and I do this all the time, is talking about features, right? We integrate with this software, and we integrate with that software, and we have this machine learning, blah, 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 and features. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is, what does the customer need? You know, what are her pain points? You know, and how do you know? How could you possibly know what this person's pain points are? Well, just ask. You just have to ask. But you have to ask very, very, very good questions. And not yes or no questions, right? So instead of asking, hey, customer, do you have problem X? That's not good, because it's a yes or no. Ask instead, oh, I bet you have problem X, but tell me, what about problem X really bothers you the most? Right? And then you listen. You don't talk. You listen. You should talk 20% of the time. The customer should talk 80% of the time, not the other way around. So they have to worry about product. Customers don't care about all those features. So moving on to the second lesson. The second lesson is getting financial commitment as early as possible. That's key. This is our first pharmacy we ever walked into. Me and Matt were dressed in full striped suits. We walk into a pharmacy, this pharmacy, we literally walked on that street. And we go into this guy with our PowerPoint presentation, app or whatever. And the guy loves it, right? You ever had that experience? You know, the people are really, it's like, oh man, this is the best application ever. I've been waiting for the two of you to come into my pharmacy and tell me how to do everything. Like, they were very enthusiastic, and they were like, look, there's only a couple of things that we need, and if you build those, you can count on us being customers. So we were very excited, right? We go back home, we code through the night, build those couple of things, and then we never hear back from this guy again. You know, we keep calling him, nothing. Today, as a matter of fact, this pharmacy is still not a customer. The second pharmacy we walked into, we tried to learn some things, and we said, look, are you going to buy our software right now? He said, no. I said, oh, well, why not? We said all these reasons that are not very related to what we do, right? Like, industry is really tough, times are hard, there's no money, all these things that were not related to the benefits that we provided. So we kind of left hopeless out of the pharmacy and missed an opportunity to uncover the real pains that they had. No? So we asked bad questions and got bad answers. They're also not a customer today. Our third pharmacy that we walked into also said, look, you just need X, Y, and Z features, and we'll be a customer. So I said, okay, you know, we're getting smarter. How about we sign a contract? where if we build X, Y, and Z to your liking, then you're going to pay us $1,000. And to my surprise, the guy said, sure. So not only that, we continued talking, and it turns out his father was a pharmacist. His father's father was a pharmacist. They always wanted him to be a pharmacist. By the end of the conversation, I asked him again, like, hey, would you be able to pay today? And he said, sure, because by then, we were friends. And that's how we got our first paying customer. Now, people buy on emotion, not logic. Like when people buy a new phone, it's not of the technical specifications of the camera. They buy it because their friends have it. They buy it because they want to feel cool. They want to feel good about themselves, right? People buy things based on emotion, and that's key. That feeling, the sense of emotion and feeling in relationship with the customer is actually much more important than I ever realized. Every time you wonder, like, why do these people talk about the weather? Salespeople talk about sports and football. I don't care about football. Like, why do they do that? Why do they go, like, get a beer with a client? It turns out that relationship is so key because when that decision to buy ends up being made later down the line, they're going to decide to buy. It's not going to be a rational, logical, organized Excel spreadsheet decision. It will be an emotional decision. So be sure you get paid, and remember, emotion is what pays you. Third lesson is being aggressive. This is probably the most important lesson, is that being aggressive is okay. Don't give up. Ambition is key. Like Leonardo DiCaprio says in The Wolf of Wall Street, they either buy or they die. I remember there's one person I was trying to reach. They never answered any emails, any phone calls, right? So then I put on my calendar and called them every day for 2 weeks. I called this guy's cell phone, not office phone, cell phone. So he was seeing my messages. And then 2 weeks, nothing. Voicemails, nothing. And then I said, okay, I'm not calling enough, right? So I'm calling twice a day for 2 weeks. Every day, twice a day, weekends. So finally, after 2 weeks, on a Saturday, I call, no answer. I call again, boom, he answers. He's like, oh, hello, who is this? Oh, what's this about? No, he pretended like I had never called before. Like that was the first phone call, first missed call that he's ever seen from me. And everything seemed to be fine with him. And it was fine, In the end, we actually ended up closing the deal, and it was perfectly fine. So aggressivity is okay. Matter of fact, our first partnership, first the first only partnership, but it was also a large partnership, came from an email that the person responded 3 months after I had sent the email. Like, who checks their email 3 months later? That's crazy. But this guy somehow responded to my email after 3 months and said, oh, hey, we should schedule a phone call. Oh, that's great. And he CC'd his assistant. So we scheduled a phone call. And the day of the call, we said, well, why not just go in person to his building? So we did. Me and Matt go in person to this guy's building. He was very surprised. He was like, well, I thought this was a phone call. Oh, there must have been some miscommunication. We thought it was in person. But look, hey, while we're here, since you have this time anyway on your calendar, let's talk now. He's like, okay. So we start talking, and he starts talking about how much he loves golf. He literally has a whole wall of golf balls. So we talk about golf, and he loves talking about himself and golf. Again, we ask questions. Remember the 20-80% rule? And that's it. That's how we got our first partnership. So don't ever give up. Keep pushing. Aggressivity is okay. Persistence does not mean desperation. I have a friend whose company sells to investment banks. Now, if you don't know, investment bankers are probably the most difficult human beings on the planet. They're very hard to reach, and this guy needs to sell to them software that's worth $50,000. So what does he do? One thing that he did was he would literally hide in the bushes. That's right, in the bushes of right next to the investment bank, in a suit at 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting for these guys to come into work, because that was the only way he could get a chance to talk to them. He was literally in a suit, in the bushes, hiding, because otherwise they would run away or like get around it, wouldn't park the Uber or whatever. So then he literally had to hide in the bushes to do this. And you know what? His customers actually appreciated his determination. They all wanted to hire him. And recently his startup got acquired. So being persistent is okay. A few other tips and tricks of hustle is sending a calendar invitation as an email. So I don't know if you realize, a lot of mail clients automatically put the invitation on people's calendars just to block it off. So when you send somebody you've never talked to before a calendar invitation via email, they have it on their calendar. So then you call the day of and say, hey, we have a meeting. They're like, oh, I don't remember schedule, but I guess it is on the schedule. How did this? Yeah, I don't know either. But hey, here we are talking. So let me tell you about, or rather, let me ask you about the pains you may have with your business. Another tip is you can use software like Yesware or other ones that track when your emails are open. So when you see, oh hey, they opened my email, well then you follow up because they're probably thinking, they're seeing your email and thinking of you. So you can follow up with a phone call or email. These days, look, it's very easy to get somebody's email and phone number using these guys reported LinkedIn Jigsaw. You can find anybody's email and phone number. So to recap, customers don't care about your product and its features. They just care about their own problems and pain points. Make sure you get paid, and that emotion is what's going to pay you. And don't give up. In the end, the US Embassy changed their decision in a remarkable sales effort. So that really goes to show you that even the toughest customer, the US government, can buy eventually. So don't give up. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much, Flaviu. That was really great. And since we have still a little bit of time left, I would like to take one question from the audience if we have any. So if you have a question, then raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to ask a question. Dan again. Can we get a microphone up to Dan?
Yeah, we can do 2 questions.
2 questions. We have a second one. Okay,
sure,
we take a second question.
So my question is very easy. From my experience as entrepreneur, you have a time when you say it's enough, but then you come back and fight. Can you tell us when was this in your life as entrepreneur?
I mean, almost every day. Earlier today, I think every day is kind of like a roller coaster, is why I gave that example of the customer that really loved it, but then they were gone, because it's constantly up and down. Even right now, for instance, we're selling to larger pharmacies, and sometimes it's like, oh, it's not going to work. Even though we've already sold 4,000 customers, each kind of sale comes with a doubt that, oh man, maybe it's not going to happen. And some people think, oh, I must be bad at sales because I have that doubt that it's not going to. But it's just normal. That means you're just like a human being. You shouldn't feel bad about salespeople are constantly in this roller coaster, because one moment you think you're on top of the world, Wolf of Wall Street, and the other moment you think like you're terrible and you're never going to be able to close another deal. So literally every day I feel like this happens.
Okay.
Thank
You have one more question? Because you said like you'll take one more.
One more question.
Otherwise, I'll ask you. What is the difference between selling in Romania and selling in the US?
I don't know, actually. So I've only sold in the US, so I don't know. But in the US, we sell to many ethnic regions. It's hard to believe, but maybe pharmacies are organized very, very ethnically. So you would have a very tight Indian American circle and Asian American. So they're vastly different ways of selling. But at the end of the day, I think the same, as far as my experience, same rule applies, that people care about their own problems, and if you find a way to get at that, to uncover those pains, to ask the best questions, that's really the hardest thing, then I think they'll react in Romania as well as the US, in my experience. But
okay. Thank you very much,
you.
Flaviu. That was
Appreciate it.
fantastic.